The sun glared down on the sprawling front lawn of Westport Academy, a prestigious private school in the heart of California's wine country. Luxury cars lined the street outside, their polished surfaces gleaming like trophies. Proud parents in designer clothes filled the courtyard, chattering excitedly as the class of 2025 lined up on stage. It was supposed to be a perfect day for everyone except for one man, Marcus Hawk. Hawkins adjusted the brim of his simple navy blue cap as he stepped through the gates. He was a broad-shouldered black man in his late 40s, his posture ramrod straight, his steps measured. His faded dress blues clung tightly to his muscular frame. The jacket freshly pressed but clearly well-worn, a lifetime of stories stitched into every crease. A single row of ribbons glimmered subtly on his chest, but it wasn't the kind of shine that came from a tailor's shop. It came from blood, grit, and sacrifice. Marcus wasn't here to show off. He was here for one reason: to watch his son, Caleb Hawkins, walk across that stage and receive his diploma. Caleb was the pride of his life, a bright, ambitious kid who'd worked his way to a scholarship at this elite academy. Marcus had promised him he wouldn't miss this day for anything in the world. But not everyone was happy to see him there. As Marcus walked toward the front rows, two security guards stationed near the gates locked eyes with him. They weren't school staff. Their crisp black suits and reflective sunglasses screamed private contractor. Both men were tall, heavily built, and had earpieces that buzzed quietly with radio chatter. "Hey, sir," one of them called, stepping in front of Marcus. His voice was sharp, his tone dripping with authority. "Invitation, please." Marcus reached into his jacket and handed over the printed graduation pass Caleb had mailed him weeks ago. The guard scanned it briefly, frowned, and then glanced back up at Marcus. "This is for reserved seating," the guard said, his voice low but firm. "Those seats are for parents." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I am a parent." The guard exchanged a quick look with his partner. The second man stepped closer, folding his arms. "Sir, we're going to have to ask you to step aside. These seats are for school families. Guests should sit toward the back." Marcus's patience thinned. "I'm Caleb Hawkins' father. He's valedictorian today. My name's in the program. I'm not sitting in the back." The taller guard smirked. "Sir, I'm not going to argue. Step aside, or we'll have to escort you out." A few parents nearby turned their heads. Some whispered. Others gave Marcus a quick, dismissive glance, the kind that said he doesn't belong here. Marcus had dealt with that look his whole life. In the military, in airports, even his own neighborhood sometimes. It rolled off his back like rain. But today wasn't about him. It was about Caleb. And there was no way he'd let this moment be ruined. On stage, Caleb stood proudly with his classmates, adjusting his cap. He scanned the audience, searching for his dad. He'd spent months imagining this moment, his father in his uniform, standing tall in the front row, the camera catching him cheering louder than anyone else. But Caleb couldn't see him. Instead, he noticed a commotion by the gate. Two guards standing chest to chest with his dad. His stomach sank. Back at the gate, Marcus kept his voice calm but steady. "I'm not causing trouble. I have a right to be here. If you like, you can confer my name with the principal." The second guard scoffed. "Sir, I'm not here to play games. We have orders to keep people without proper clearance out of these sections. If you don't move, we'll have to call local law enforcement." That word, law enforcement, sparked murmurs among parents nearby. Phones came out. A mother whispered something to her husband, glancing nervously at Marcus. Marcus clenched his fists at his sides. His training kicked in. He'd been in far worse situations. Pinned down under enemy fire, stranded in hostile zones. But nothing cut deeper than being treated like a criminal at his own son's graduation. "Hey!" Caleb's voice rang out from the stage. He'd stepped down from the podium stairs. His graduation robe swang around him. "That's my dad." But the guards ignored him. "Sir," the taller guard said again, this time louder. "Last warning. Step aside, or we'll remove you from the premises." Marcus took a slow breath. His hand brushed over medals on his chest. Not out of vanity, but as a silent reminder of everything he'd earned. He'd served over 2 decades, deployed in some of the most dangerous regions in the world. He'd trained Navy SEALs, led reconnaissance missions, and survived situations that would have broken lesser men. And now he was being threatened by a rent-a-cop at a high school graduation. More parents began to notice. A few muttered under their breath. Others took out their phones to film. Some even smirked, as if they'd already decided Marcus didn't belong in a place like this. The shorter guard stepped closer, hand resting on his belt. "Sir," I said, "move." Marcus's eyes hardened. He wasn't a man of many words, but when he spoke, his voice carried quiet authority. "I've fought for this country," Marcus said calmly. "I've buried brothers in arms. And I've endured things you couldn't imagine, so people like you could stand here and feel safe. I'm not moving." The taller guard scowled. "That's it. We're calling the police." Unbeknownst to the guards, several men sitting quietly in the back rows had already risen to their feet. They weren't dressed like the other parents. Their sharp eyes scanned the crowd, their posture unmistakably military. One of them, a tall, broad-shouldered man with close-cropped hair and a subtle Navy SEAL trident pin on his lapel, exchanged a look with the others. They moved as one, like shadows slicing through the crowd. The guards didn't see them coming, but Marcus did. And when his eyes locked on those familiar faces, a small, knowing smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. The guards were seconds away from putting their hands on Marcus when a commanding voice cut through the chaos. "Touch him and you'll regret it." The crowd froze. All eyes turned. 6 men in dark suits stepped forward, their presence impossible to ignore. They weren't parents. They weren't staff. They were Navy SEALs. And the temperature of the entire courtyard dropped 10 degrees. In an instant, the courtyard buzzed with uneasy murmurs as the 6 men advanced through the crowd. Their steps were steady, deliberate, and synchronized in a way that sent a ripple of unease to the parents seated nearby. These weren't ordinary guests. Their clean-shaven jaws, square shoulders, and razor-sharp stares told a story before any of them spoke. The tallest of the group, a man with a shaved head and an aura of command, stopped just a few feet away from the guards. His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it, the kind that froze people mid-breath. I said, "Touch him and you'll regret it." The taller security guard blinked, confused. "Sir, this doesn't concern you." The man took one step closer, towering over him. "It does concern me. That man right there," he said, pointing at Marcus, "is one of the finest Marines this country has ever seen. You don't get to treat him like a criminal at his own son's graduation." Gasps echoed through the crowd. Phones raised higher, recording every second. Caleb, standing near the stage, looked relieved but tense, his eyes darting between his father and the guards. The shorter guard scoffed nervously. "Look, I don't care who he is. We're following orders. We were told this section is for VIPs and families only." Marcus finally spoke, his deep voice cutting through the tension. "I am family. My son is valedictorian. My name is in that program you're holding." The guard faltered but kept his hand near his radio. "We've had problems before. We can't have disturbances." The shaved-head man's jaw tightened. "You're about to cause one." The courtyard atmosphere had changed completely. Parents who moments ago were smiling and chatting now sat stiff, whispering among themselves. Some glanced at Marcus with suspicion, others with growing shame. A few had already started streaming the scene on social media. "Who are these guys?" one parent muttered. "They look like military," another whispered. But the truth was, these men weren't just any veterans. They were active-duty Navy SEALs. Each of them had served under Marcus at some point in their careers. He wasn't just their brother in arms. He was their mentor. And when word spread in their group chat that Marcus Hawkins was being harassed at his own son's graduation, they cleared their schedules and drove in from across the state. The lead SEAL, Commander Derek Mason, took another step forward, locking eyes with the taller guard. "You said this section was for VIPs, right? Then maybe you should learn who your VIPs are." He reached into his jacket and flashed an ID badge, so quickly the guards barely had time to process it. Their faces paled. Internal affairs. The shorter guard swallowed hard. "Sir, Mason cut him off with a low, commanding tone. "You've already said too much." Marcus finally stepped forward, resting a hand on Mason's shoulder. It's fine, Derek. I don't want to make a scene. But Mason shook his head. Too late for that, Hawk. They started this. We're finishing it. The taller guard bristled, trying to salvage his authority. We're just doing our job. No, Mason interrupted sharply. Your job is to keep people safe, not profile them. And right now, you're humiliating a decorated Marine in front of his son's entire class. You think that's doing your job? The guard's mouth opened, but no words came out. Dad. Caleb's voice cracked as he rushed over, graduation cap in hand. His robe swayed as he pushed past rows of seats, his classmates and teachers staring in shock. What's going on? Why are they bothering you? Marcus's expression softened. He placed a hand on his son's shoulder. It's okay, son. Nothing you need to worry about. Caleb's face flushed with anger. Yes, it is. This is my graduation, and you're my dad. You're supposed to be sitting right in front where I can see you. Not back here fighting with security. The crowd erupted in whispers. Some parents shifted uncomfortably, realizing just how wrong the situation looked. Principal Everett, a tall, stern man with graying hair, finally rushed over, looking flustered. What's going on here? He demanded. Mason didn't miss a beat. Your security guards thought it was a good idea to harass and threaten to remove Caleb Hawkins' father, a Marine veteran who's bled for this country. Care to explain why? Everett's face drained of color. Mr. Hawkins? I didn't realize. Marcus stood tall, his face calm but firm. You didn't need to realize anything. I had an invitation, a pass, and a reason to be here. That should have been enough. Everett looked at the guards, his expression darkening. You too. Inside. Now. The taller guard hesitated. But sir, now. Everett barked. The guards exchanged a nervous glance before slipping away, shoulders hunched. As they left, Mason and the other SEALs formed a protective half-circle around Marcus and Caleb. Parents and students watched in stunned silence. The energy had shifted, no longer suspicion, but awe. One of the younger SEALs, a stocky man with a buzz cut, muttered under his breath, "You should have called us earlier, Hawk. Would have been nice to stretch our legs." Marcus chuckled softly. Didn't think I'd need backup at a high school graduation. You don't go anywhere alone, not after everything you've done for us, Mason said. Everett cleared his throat nervously. Mr. Hawkins, Marcus, I'm so sorry for this. This should never have happened. Please, let me personally escort you to your seat. Marcus glanced at Caleb, who was still fuming, then at Mason. Slowly, he nodded. Fine. Everett led them to the front row, whispering apologies along the way. The SEALs followed close behind, their presence commanding silence. Parents shifted uncomfortably, unsure whether to clap or stay quiet. Marcus sat down finally, his large frame settling into the reserved seat. Caleb squeezed his hand before running back to join his classmates on stage. The ceremony resumed, but the tension lingered like a storm cloud. As Caleb walked back up to the podium to give his valedictorian speech, Marcus scanned the crowd. The guard were gone, but their mistake had left a mark. He caught whispers from parents filming the entire scene, their phones already buzzing with notifications. Mason leaned over and spoke quietly. This isn't over. Those guys are about to learn what accountability feels like. Marcus raised an eyebrow. You think so? Mason smirked. I know so. And when we're done, they won't just regret this, the whole company will. Marcus said nothing, but deep down, he knew Mason wasn't bluffing. As Caleb began his heartfelt speech, Marcus noticed something unusual. A pair of men in suits standing near the back, whispering urgently into radios. Their presence was different, sharper, more official. Marcus's instincts kicked in. He leaned toward Mason. We're not done here. Something's off. Mason followed his gaze, his jaw tightening. Yeah, he muttered. I see them. The graduation crowd clapped politely as Caleb spoke, unaware that tension was building again. This wasn't just about rude security guards anymore. Something bigger was in play. And Marcus knew he'd have to be ready. Two new figures had entered the picture, and their presence meant this wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was a setup. The sound of Caleb's voice echoed through the courtyard, calm and confident as he delivered his valedictorian speech. Parents dabbed their eyes, classmates clapped, and cameras flashed. But Marcus wasn't paying attention. His Marine instincts had kicked in the second he spotted those men in suits. They weren't teachers. They weren't parents. Their posture was too rigid, their movements too precise. They were scanning the crowd, whispering into their earpieces every few seconds. Marcus leaned slightly toward Mason. 6 o'clock. Back row. Tell me you see it. Mason's jaw tightened. I see it. Those aren't school security. They're federal, or pretending to be. Marcus kept his expression neutral, eyes trained on Caleb. You thinking what I'm thinking? That this wasn't about graduation security at all? Mason muttered. Marcus nodded. Caleb's speech continued, drawing applause at every pause. But while the crowd was caught up in his words, Marcus' mind raced. He recognized that controlled posture, that way of scanning a crowd. It was professional. Someone had sent these men here with a purpose. The guards earlier hadn't acted out of routine. They were jumpy, defensive. They were following instructions, maybe even trying to provoke him. But why? Mason's voice was low, but firm. I'm texting the others to spread out. We're not letting this get ugly. The SEALs shifted in their seats, moving casually but deliberately, positioning themselves in a loose perimeter. The men in suits noticed the movement. Their heads turned slightly, scanning the SEALs, but they didn't react. Not yet. When Caleb finished his speech, the courtyard erupted into applause. Marcus clapped along, his eyes still locked on the two men. One of them spoke into his sleeve, then tapped his partner on the shoulder. The pair began making their way down the side aisle, heading straight for Marcus. Mason leaned in. Here we go. Marcus straightened his back, his face calm but alert. The men stopped a few feet away, flashing polished badges that glimmered in the afternoon sun. Mr. Hawkins? The taller man asked, his voice even but firm. Marcus glanced at Mason. Depends who's asking. Special Agent Rowe. FBI. The man replied. He gestured to his partner. Agent Keller. We'd like to ask you a few questions. The crowd around them went silent again. Parents craned their necks to watch. Marcus raised an eyebrow. In the middle of my son's graduation? Afraid it's urgent, Rowe said, his tone rehearsed. If you'll come with us, sir. Mason stood immediately, his frame blocking Marcus from the agents. With all due respect, agents, you'll explain what this is about right here. He's not going anywhere without an explanation. Rowe's expression didn't change. This is official business. Classified. Now step aside. The other SEALs rose from their seats, their synchronized movements drawing gasps from the audience. The entire front row of the courtyard now bristled with military precision. Caleb, still standing near the podium, froze mid-step, his smile fading as he realized the men were approaching his father. Dad, he called nervously. Stay there, son, Marcus said firmly, his voice steady. Agent Keller stepped forward, producing a sleek black folder. Mr. Hawkins, we have reason to believe you were involved in a classified equipment breach overseas. We'd like to bring you in for questioning. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Marcus blinked, his expression unreadable. That's a bold accusation, he said slowly. And you're bringing it up at a high school graduation? Rowe didn't flinch. You're coming with us. Now. Mason's jaw tightened. You don't have a warrant, do you? The agents exchanged a glance. Keller hesitated, but Rowe held firm. We're operating under federal authority. Now move. Mason stepped closer, towering over Rowe. Wrong answer. The courtyard atmosphere turned electric. Parents were whispering furiously, some recording every moment on their phones. Teachers hovered near the stage, unsure whether to intervene. The SEALs fanned out, surrounding Marcus in a protective semicircle. Mason's voice was low but commanding. You two should think very carefully about what you do next. Keller's hand twitched near his belt. Are you threatening federal agents? No, Mason replied coldly. I'm warning you. You have no warrant, no probable cause. And you're trying to take a decorated Marine from his son's graduation. You're about to make a mistake that'll haunt your careers. Marcus finally stood, his imposing frame drawing every eye in the courtyard. He stepped forward calmly, his voice steady. "Gentlemen, if this were official, you'd have paperwork. You'd have jurisdiction. And you'd know exactly who I am." Keller's eyes flickered with doubt, but Rose sneered. "We know who you are, Mr. Hawkins, and we know what you've done." Marcus smiled faintly. "Then say it, right here, in front of all these people." Roe hesitated. The tension crackled in the air. Parents were whispering louder now, some openly criticizing the agents. Caleb looked pale, fear etched across his young face. "Go on," Marcus said, his voice carrying across the courtyard. "Tell them why you're really here." Roe's expression shifted ever so slightly. He looked at Keller, who seemed uncomfortable under the scrutiny of hundreds of watchful eyes. Mason leaned closer, his voice a low growl. "You're bluffing, and you're not FBI." Roe's jaw clenched. "Watch yourself, sailor." "I was a SEAL," Mason snapped. "I can spot a fake badge a mile away." The crowd erupted into murmurs again. Someone shouted, "Are they even real agents?" Keller's face paled. He shot a nervous glance toward the parking lot, where a black SUV sat idling. Marcus followed his gaze. "Who sent you?" Roe's composure cracked. Just for a moment. He turned sharply. "We're done here. Let's go." The agents retreated quickly, slipping back through the crowd. The black SUV roared to life, speeding away before anyone could react. The parents murmured louder, a wave of confusion sweeping the courtyard. Caleb rushed forward, his robe swaying as he ran. "Dad, who are they? What's going on?" Marcus crouched down, placing a steady hand on his son's shoulder. "Don't worry, Caleb. They weren't who they said they were. But why were they here?" Caleb's voice trembled. Marcus glanced at Mason, who shook his head. "We'll figure out," Mason said grimly. Principal Everett jogged over, looking panicked. "Mr. Hawkins, what on earth was that? Are you safe? Should I call the police?" Marcus gave him a reassuring nod. "Don't worry about it, Principal. But yes, call them. Something's not right here." Everett nodded quickly and hurried away, pulling out his phone. The SEALs stayed close, their expressions dark. Mason leaned in. "That wasn't random, Hawk. Someone set this up. Those guards earlier? They were a distraction. Somebody wanted to rattle you." Marcus's eyes narrowed. Then they picked the wrong Marine. Suddenly, a parent rushed over, phone in hand. "Sir, you need to see this," she said breathlessly. She turned the screen toward Marcus. It was a live stream, already going viral, of the confrontation with the FBI agents. The caption read, "Man harassed by fake FBI agents at his son's graduation, caught on camera." Marcus frowned, scanning the video. In the background, he spotted something chilling, a second black SUV, parked further back, with a telephoto lens aimed right at him. He straightened slowly. "They're still here." Mason's face hardened. "Then we hunt. The fake agents might be gone, but Marcus has just realized he's under surveillance. And this is bigger than a simple graduation incident." The crowd was dispersing, but the tension hung thick in the air like a thunderstorm about to break. Parents whispered nervously. Students huddled in small groups, and the live stream continued to rack up thousands of views. The scene looked like chaos to the untrained eye, but to Marcus, it was a battlefield. He scanned the perimeter, muscles coiled, every instinct screaming. The second SUV was gone now, disappearing just as quickly as the first. That wasn't random. Whoever was behind this was organized and patient. "All right," Mason said quietly, "we're not doing this out in the open." He gestured toward the parking lot. "Let's get your family somewhere safe. Then we find out who's playing games." Marcus nodded, placing protective hand on Caleb's shoulder. His son was still pale, the events of the last half hour finally sinking in. "Dad, what's happening?" Caleb whispered. Marcus crouched down, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Nothing you need to worry about, champ. We'll handle it." He stood again, voice hardening. "Mason, lock us down. Nobody gets near my family." The SEALs moved like a well-oiled machine, forming a tight escort as they led Marcus, Caleb, and Denise, Marcus's wife, to their SUV. Denise hadn't spoken a word since the confrontation, her hand gripping Caleb's like a lifeline. As soon as they were inside the vehicle, Mason slid into the passenger seat and pulled out a burner phone. "I'm calling in a favor," he muttered, fingers flying across the keypad. Marcus glanced at him. "Who?" "An old friend. NSA." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "We're going straight to the alphabet soup?" Mason gave a grim nod. "Hawk. Whoever sent those guys wasn't playing. Fake badges. Stage confrontation. Live streams going viral. Someone's trying to make you look dirty. This feels like a setup." Marcus leaned back in his seat, his jaw tight. Then we flipped the script. Within minutes, Mason got a ping on his phone. A grainy satellite image filled the screen, showing a warehouse near the edge of town. "Bingo," Mason said. "Our friends with the SUVs are holed up here. Got the plates. One of the SUVs belongs to a shell company registered in Delaware, classic cover." Marcus studied the image, his mind racing. "They weren't here for me. Not really." Mason frowned. "Then who?" Marcus looked out the window, his gaze distant. "Caleb." Mason's head snapped toward him. "Your son?" Marcus nodded slowly. "Think about it. Why go after me at his graduation, in front of hundreds of witnesses? Why fake being FBI? They wanted attention and leverage. My record's clean, Mason. They couldn't smear me, so they're trying to scare me. Into doing what? That's what we're going to find out." Night had fallen by the time Marcus and Mason arrived near the warehouse. They'd left Denise and Caleb under tight protection at a secure location, guarded by 2 SEALs and a family friend in law enforcement. The remaining SEALs joined Marcus and Mason in the field, dressed in civilian gear but armed and alert. They moved silently through the industrial park, shadows in the dark. Mason crouched beside a dumpster, peering through binoculars. 2 guards at the door. No cameras I can see, but there's movement inside. Marcus adjusted his earpiece. "We need confirmation. No mistakes." They split into pairs, circling the building. Marcus moved with the fluid precision of a man who'd done this 100 times. Every step calculated, every glance purposeful. When he reached a broken window near the back, he peered inside. What he saw made his blood run cold. Inside the dimly lit warehouse, 3 men huddled around a laptop. On the screen was Caleb's face, a screenshot from his graduation livestream. Underneath it, Marcus could make out lines of text, including the words primary asset and leverage potential. "They're targeting him," Marcus whispered into his mic. "Copy that." Mason's voice crackled. "We take them now?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "Not yet. I want to know why." He pulled out his phone, snapping a few photos of the laptop screen through the cracked window. Then he noticed something else. A duffel bag on the floor near the men. Its zipper was partially open, revealing wires, a circuit board, and a timer. "Explosives," Marcus hissed. "Mason, they're not just here for surveillance. They're planning something big." "All right, that's it. We move." Within seconds, the SEALs were in motion. 2 guards at the entrance were neutralized silently, one with a swift chokehold, the other with a stun baton. Marcus and Mason slipped through the side door, guns raised, moving with lethal precision. Inside, chaos erupted. One of the men lunged for the duffel bag, but Marcus was faster, slamming him against the wall. Another reached for his weapon, only to be tackled by Mason. The third tried to run, but a SEAL at the rear entrance cut him off. "Hands up!" Marcus barked. The men froze, realizing they were hopelessly outmatched. Mason grabbed the duffel bag, tossing it aside carefully. "Timer's not set," he muttered. "But this isn't homemade junk. Military grade." Marcus turned his attention to the man pinned against the wall. "Talk," he growled. "Who sent you?" The man smirked. "You're in way over your head, Marine." Marcus slammed him harder into the wall. "Try me." The man's smirk faltered. You don't get it. This isn't personal. Your kid's just insurance." "Insurance or what?" Marcus demanded. No answer. Mason grabbed the man's collar. yanking him closer. Answer him before I lose my patience. The man's eyes darted nervously. We work for Orion. Marcus frowned. Orion? It's a private group. Security contractors. We get things done for people who pay enough. And who paid you to target my son? The man hesitated. You'll find out soon enough. Marcus's expression hardened. Wrong answer. They zip-tied the man and secured the duffel bag. Mason called in their contact at the NSA, who promised a rapid response team. Let's move, Marcus ordered. We'll interrogate them somewhere safe. As they exited the warehouse, Marcus felt that prickling on the back of his neck. Someone was watching. He turned just in time to see a flash of movement on the roof. Sniper, Marcus barked. The SEALs duffel cover as a shot rang out, shattering the pavement inches from Marcus's feet. Go! Go! Mason shouted, dragging one of the suspects behind a shipping container. The SEALs returned fire, suppressing the sniper as Marcus scanned for an escape route. More SUVs screeched into the lot, headlights cutting through the darkness. Men in tactical gear poured out, weapons raised. They're here for their friends, Mason growled. Marcus ducked behind cover, heart pounding but mind razor sharp. We're outnumbered. We fall back. He signaled to the SEALs, who began retreating in pairs, covering each other with suppressive fire. The air was thick with gunpowder and shouts, chaos erupting in every direction. But Marcus's focus was clear: get his son out alive. As Marcus sprinted toward their extraction vehicle, Mason's voice crackled in his earpiece. They're not trying to kill us, Mason said breathlessly. They're trying to capture you. Marcus dove into the SUV, slamming the door shut as bullets ricocheted off the frame. Why? Marcus demanded. Mason's voice was grim. Because you're not just Caleb's dad anymore, Hawk. You're the key to something much bigger. The SUV peeled out a lot, tires screeching. In the rearview mirror, Marcus watched as the armed men regrouped, their faces illuminated by the glow of their headlights. They weren't giving up. And deep down, Marcus knew this was only the beginning. Marcus and the SEAL brothers have uncovered a private paramilitary group, Orion, targeting his family. And now, they're on the run, hunted by a well-funded enemy. The SUV tore down the highway at full speed, headlights cutting through the darkness. Mason sat in the passenger seat, barking orders into his comms, while Marcus's hands gripped the steering wheel with calm precision. In the back seat, two captured Orion operatives sat zip-tied and gagged, guarded by one of the SEALs. They've got roadblocks up ahead, Mason muttered, scanning a GPS map. They're trying to box us in. Marcus smirked grimly. They've never chased a Marine recon driver before. He slammed the brakes, yanked the wheel, and spun the SUV into a sharp U-turn. Tires screeched, smoke filled the air, and the SEALs held on tight. Behind them, headlights of pursuing SUVs lit up like predators in the night. Hang on, Marcus growled, flooring the gas and cutting down a side road barely wide enough for their vehicle. Raven, 6, this is Hawk. Marcus barked into his comm. I need a rapid response unit now. Copy that, came the calm voice of their NSA contact. We're scrambling attack team. 15 minutes out. Make it 10. Marcus growled, swerving hard to avoid a spike strip Orion operatives had laid in their path. Bullets pinged against the SUV's reinforced panels. Mason returned fire to the rear window, forcing their attackers to back off. 10 minutes is an eternity, Mason muttered. Then we buy ourselves time, Marcus said, his voice cool but deadly. They finally lost a tail, ducking into an abandoned factory they'd scoped out earlier. Inside, the SEALs set up a quick perimeter, scanning for any sign of drones or thermal imaging. Clear, one of them whispered. Marcus dragged one of the Orion operatives into the center of the room, ripping off his gag. The man's face was pale, sweat dripping down his temple. You get one chance, Marcus said quietly, his voice calm but laced with steel. Why target my son? The man hesitated, his lips trembling. Talk, Mason barked, slamming his fist onto the table. Why you don't get it? The man stammered. This isn't about you. Orion, they've been hired by someone high up. They want leverage. Your kid's just a message. You're You're standing in the way of a contract. Marcus's eyes narrowed. What contract? The man swallowed hard. Federal security takeover. They're trying to privatize parts of the Internal Affairs Division. They think you're too clean, too loud, too black. You scare them. They want you out of the way. Marcus exchanged a look with Mason. They're not just mercs. They're a shadow company trying to infiltrate the system. Yeah, Mason said grimly. And they're funded enough to bribe judges, fake FBI badges, and stage a public takedown of a decorated Marine. Marcus's mind raced. He'd suspected corruption before, but this was something else entirely. Orion wasn't just after him. They were trying to control law enforcement oversight itself. They made a mistake, Marcus said, his voice low. They came for my family. Within minutes, Mason's laptop lit up with a secure feed. The NSA contact, codenamed Raven 6, appeared on the screen. Hawk, we traced Orion's comms. They're operating out of a covert compound 20 miles from you, Raven 6 said. We've got authorization to take them down, officially, but we need proof. Marcus glanced at the trembling operative tied to a chair. We got their proof sitting right here. Raven 6 nodded. Then we'll coordinate a joint strike. You and your team secure the hostages and intel. My TAC unit will lock down the compound. Marcus grabbed his gear, strapping on his vest. Let's end this. The compound was heavily guarded, surrounded by fencing and floodlights. SUVs lined the perimeter, and men in tactical gear patrolled with military precision. But Marcus and his SEALs were ghosts in the night. They infiltrated silently, cutting cameras and neutralizing guards with tranquilizer darts. When they reached the main building, Marcus signaled for his men a fan out. Mason and 2 SEALs breached a side entrance while Marcus and another teammate slipped in through a loading dock. Inside, chaos erupted. Go loud! Mason barked. Suppressors hissed as the SEALs moved room to room, sweeping through hallways with deadly efficiency. Marcus kicked open a door and froze. Inside was a war room. Maps, encrypted laptops, and whiteboards full of names and photos filled the space. In the center, a man in a suit stood calmly, hands clasped behind his back. Colonel Hawk, the man said with a cold smile. Finally, we meet. Marcus raised his weapon, hands where I can see them. The man smirked. You think this changes anything? Orion's roots run deeper than you could imagine. We don't answer to the government. We own it. Marcus's jaw tightened. Not tonight. The man's expression faltered as Mason entered behind Marcus, his rifle trained. We got their servers, Mason said. Every dirty contract, every name, every payoff. All of it. The man's smugness evaporated. You won't walk out alive with that data. Marcus stepped forward, pressing the barrel of his rifle against the man's chest. Watch me. By the time Raven SX's TAC team arrived, Orion operatives were already surrendering. Their compound locked down. Helicopters roared overhead as agents flooded the area, cuffing mercenaries and seizing weapons. Marcus and Mason escorted the captured leader out in cuffs, reporters swarming the scene. The live stream that had humiliated Marcus hours earlier was now replaced with a different narrative. A Marine hero exposing a nationwide conspiracy. The following week, Orion's name was splashed across every news network. Arrests were made and federal investigations launched. The company's leadership was dismantled overnight. At Caleb's school, whispers of the chaotic graduation turned into respect. Parents approached Marcus with tears in their eyes, thanking him for his service and bravery. But Marcus stayed humble, his focus always returning to his family. He wasn't a hero in his mind. He was a father who'd done what any parent would. 2 weeks later, the school organized a private ceremony for Caleb and his classmates, this time with real security and no chaos. Marcus sat in the front row, his hand holding Denise's tightly as Caleb walked the stage with confidence. When Caleb received his diploma, the crowd erupted into applause, not just for him, but for his father, who stood as a symbol of resilience and integrity. As Marcus hugged his son, Mason approached with a grin. Not bad for a guy who was escorted off the premises. Huh? Marcus chuckled. Yeah, let's not make that a tradition. Later, During an interview, Marcus said quietly, "I've spent my life defending my country, but sometimes the fight isn't overseas, it's right here home. Disrespect, racism, corruption, they thrive when good people stay quiet. Respect is free, but standing up for it, that's priceless." The clip went viral, inspiring millions. And while Marcus never sought fame, he became a symbol of justice, a reminder that even in the face of corruption and hatred, one voice, backed by courage, could change everything. Marcus exposed a dangerous conspiracy, brought Orion to justice, and reclaimed his son's big day, turning humiliation into a moment of empowerment that inspired a nation.